In that case,
I don't know why,
I'm...
but I pulled up the fucking transcript, and its first location is observation deck, right? And I read it as observation dick.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that's where you were going with that one. Once
I'm
you said
glad I.
observation deck, I'm like, it's gonna be a dick joke.
All hands on dick.
Also, I I already
Sorry.
have. I will. And that's our cold open. There we go. This is the second one that's just like Avery laughing fit as the cold open.
As you were, Jeff.
All hands on
Maybe
deck.
not.
Oh, cheap and easy. All right. Hello and welcome to the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
Avery.
And today we are looking at Series 1, Episode 7? 8? What is it? Fuck. I'm having a moment. 7. Series 1, Episode 7, The Long Game, by... ya boy, the based knight himself, Russell T. Davies. Oh man, I'm gonna have to make a based RTD jingle this week, like I did like the based Robert Shearman jingle last week, just because of like how like uber based this episode is.
Let's go.
So this is Adam Mitchell's only adventure with the TARDIS crew, minor spoiler alert, and it is set in Satellite 5, which is a two in the year 200,000. So it starts off and they step out into this set, which it's not quite as good looking as the End of the World set. Like, you can kind of tell of like, yeah, this was shot on a soundstage. It looks a little cheap around the edges. Although, I guess, in some ways that is a little bit to its benefit, because it's supposed to look kind of grimy and not particularly nice, whereas the End of the World was very fancy because it was where all the rich people were. So the 9 informs Adam and Rose that this is supposed to be the fourth great and bountiful human empire, which I actually think is a reference to, like, there's a First Doctor episode that has a different great and bountiful human empire.
Yeah, I'd love to see 1 through 3, but, who knows? Universe reboot might not be there anymore.
It's like watching Shrek 4 before the other three. I know how to count.
Can I see some citations, please?
So I love how, like, I have issues, like, I have less issues with Adam in this episode than I have with Adam and Dalek, but they're still there, and I will talk to them as they go on. Part of this
I
is,
do
I think,
not have as many issues with Adam in this episode.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
we
think
talked
it's
about this.
mainly just how his arc is handled, and I think it would I'll just get into this now. I think the idea of what if a companion didn't work out, I think it would be more interesting if you have a companion that seems like relatively normal, maybe a bit more like neutral leaning than most of the Doctor's companions, but like someone who like still kind of works, and you have like more than 2 episodes with them, and then they get kicked out because they do something that the Doctor considers unforgivable, and it's supposed to be more of like a big like punch, like gut punch moment, whereas Adam, you're just like, this guy sucks.
I mean, I get that, and I get that, like, it could be better, but I guess I don't really have any specific issues with him in this episode.
I mean, that's also because I think, like, the A plot of this episode is really, really good, and thus, whenever the B plot comes in, it's just like, oh, come on, get back to the good shit.
I mean, I can see how you'd think that, but also, I found it entertaining. I found him funny in this episode.
Yeah.
I do wish that they kind of leaned more into him being overwhelmed at first, and how, you know, maybe there are some people who just like really aren't cut out for this. They don't adjust even with how smart he is, but like very quickly it turns from like, oh, you know, I'm overwhelmed to, oh, I'm going to like fuck with the entire timeline, maybe. You know, it's just like a really weird jump that might have worked if we had had more episodes with him and if he was more interesting, but it kind of just like jumps the gun on this whole arc, which, you know, whatever.
Plus, you think if he's as smart as they say he is, he'd think through the whole causality of this thing, but whatever. I do like the setup for this episode where the Doctor's like totally like kind of like sucking off how great this era of humanity is, and then it's just like a grimy fast food restaurant and like a work cafeteria, and everyone's just kind of basically about the same as they are now, and the Doctor's like, hang on, wait a minute.
Well, even before that, the moment I liked was when he walks out and, you know, he does this little thing of identifying where they are, and then Rose listens to him, and then Adam walks out, and she just goes through the whole thing again to pretend like it was her.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, say what you will about 9, solid wingman.
Yeah, no, I like 9 a lot more after this revisit. Nine's pretty great. But yeah, and I like that there's this idea of like, wait a second, this isn't right, like the chronology is off. So they meet 2 journalists, Suki and Kathika, and do their usual talking their way in kind of thing, and they find out that they're on Satellite 5, a satellite that broadcasts all the news for the entirety of the Earth. There's a little throwaway here saying that the Face of Bo has just announced that he's pregnant, which, considering who the Face of Bo is, I find really funny, considering that there's also a Torchwood, like, I think the first Torchwood episode, there's a throwaway line that, hints that Jack has been pregnant before.
Nice.
51st century cis male biology is interesting.
Hey,
interesting
I mean,
trip.
Just saying, it's never confirmed. It's never explicitly stated Jack is cis, as far as I know. So
I believe Jack's not even human.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's just a humanoid. Hold on, I think this is getting into Big Finish canon a little. But first of all, Jack's real name is.
Here we go.
Jeff.
No, his real name
Jeff.
is Yavik Piotr Thane, and that's a Big Finish thing. Oh no, okay, the wiki says he's human. Okay, I thought he wasn't. He was just a humanoid, but apparently I was wrong.
But does it say he's cis?
I mean, we know they're slightly different than humanoids now.
Yeah,
of course, but.
I mean, yeah, honestly, like, part of the thing is, like, even if he is cis, the technology may have advanced to such that, like, you can mess around with the biological shit a bit more. Anyways, back to the episode. So this is starting where we get into the base thing of this entire episode is commentary on the fact that the news is misinforming people and dumbing people down and slowing our development and making us stupider, which is really, really, really base. Especially considering that this episode came out in 2005. This episode is 15 years old.
Yeah.
And RTD was already on top of this.
I wonder when that will be relevant.
Also, the fact that specifically the fact that they use the news is being used to like stoke nationalist sentiment and like stop immigration.
Yeah,
is like that's even more relevant now than it was. I mean, I don't know about how relevant it was in Britain at the time, but like at least for the U.S., it's now.
This episode's kind of uncomfortable. Like I read a is contemporary review the right term for this? A review that was written when the episode actually came out in 2005 by a Doctor Who fan site, and they were like, this episode sucks because the satire is too clunkingly obvious. But like the thing is that where we are now, the satire is not clunkingly obvious, it's just scarily real.
It's not even satire, it's just what happens.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was watching it through this time, and I was just like, they say like there's humans and aliens at this empire, but like humans, we're near Earth, so that must be why there like aren't any aliens. They're just like making an excuse to save the budget, but there's actually like an in-universe reason why.
Yeah, they actually
there's not
explain
there.
it too, which is really good.
Yeah, it's good use of in universe and out of universe like marriage there.
Yeah, that is like one of the really good things about RTD era, and partly about Who in general, but especially RTD era, is that like whenever you get kind of futuristic like alien or human alien kind of civilizations, they're always very diverse, both in creature designs and in casting. And Chibnall era has brought that back a little bit, but it's like, wow, like he's really kind of the imagination on display during a lot of these RTD era like future episodes is really good. Also, we are introduced to the editor, played by ya boy Simon Pegg, who at this point was, I think, between two really good movies, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, which are both really, really good fucking movies. And he is the editor, the head honcho of Satellite 5 up in floor 500. There's a really good joke here where Rose is like trying to like get Adam to like kind of assimilate himself into the culture a little, and she's like, try this, it's like a slush puppy, and Adam's like, what flavor? And she sucks it, and she's like, sort of beef? With like a question on the end.
Yeah.
Like, that's really
good.
Can I talk about something else real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like just from earlier in the episode, the line where he sort of just gives Adam some money and is like, okay, go fuck around, and he's just like, well, how does it work? And the doctor just gets really annoyed, and he's like, stop nagging me. And you can't just read the guidebook, just like throw yourself food, use the wrong verbs, get charged double, and end up kissing complete strangers. Or is that just which imply that all of those are things he's done? So he'll just like turn up on a planet and use the wrong language and then just kiss random people, and he doesn't specify the gender of the people he's kissing.
8 would do that. That's a big 8 thing.
Yeah.
I can see that even with my limited knowledge. I will say narratively it is a bit of an idiot ball moment for the Doctor to just give a new basically trial companion
especially
all this
one
money.
That he doesn't trust.
Yeah, but I get the feeling
you
that
think he wouldn't let Adam out of his sight.
Yeah, if I wanted to be generous with the writing, which I'm not, I would say that he's doing more than he normally would for Rose's sake, but even in the episode, they contradict that he's, like, really not happy that he's here, so it's just a wash.
Yeah, and especially, like, I think, like, the other comparison would be, he was longer lived than Adam was, and was like more of an actual companion than Adam was, but Harry Sullivan, who briefly traveled with Four and Sarah Jane. Similarly, Sarah Jane was like, "Come on, let's let him come along," and Four would like regularly like make fun of him, but he'd usually like keep Harry like with him generally. But yeah. But he also liked Harry more than Nine likes Adam, so. So they go into the room where it's like, this is where the news happens, and they never really explain how this device works, but it looks cool, so I roll with it. I just like to talk about the fact that RTD said non-binary rights in 2005.
Ah, yes, very true.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, the terminology is a little weird. The actual line is ladies, gentlemen, multi-sex, undecided, or robot. But for 2005, the fact that he's acknowledging it and not, like, acknowledging it, like, in a joking way, like, it's taken serious of, like, this is, like, genuinely, like, we have, like, evolved to this point. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's for 2005, and being based with the type of language you're given, you know.
Yeah. So then you find out what the news is, which is a bunch of people sit in a circle and kind of telepathically concentrate, and then Kathika sits in a chair and snaps her fingers, and a hole opens up in her head, revealing her brain, which a big light thingy streams into. You gonna make a curse tweet on that one, Avery?
Yes, I will do so right now.
All right, we're on the air, folks.
We'll do it live.
I mean, you should keep talking because it's going to take me a second, but
I do like that it's shown that, like the doctor mentions at some point, that this technology is backwards, and I'm of two minds of wondering, like, you know, the doctor pretty much knows anything about an era based on plot, but I have to wonder if it's like a thing where they're taught like the history of the universe, and because it's Gallifrey and Time Lords, they can somehow do that.
Like to go to Big Finish, because I've been spending most of the last week listening to a shit ton of Big Finish audios. The Matrix on Gallifrey has like records of like literally everything in the whole universe, which is why it's actually a plot point when shit happens and the Matrix is having trouble remembering things because of paradoxes. But go listen to 8's audio dramas, everyone. They're great.
But I was wondering if it was that, and my other theory was like if it's some part of like Time Lords being like that alien and that in tune with time that they're just able to tell like in an area. I think there is a little bit general, of that, but because of that, and also he's like smart, at least by human standards, that he's able to tell that like something is off and things are not as they usually are. It's basically like a sixth sense that he's just like something's not right.
Yeah, no, their perception of time is definitely a sixth sense, because again, going back to the Eighth Doctor shit, there's actually an audio where I may have mentioned it. It's called Scherzo. It's actually really terrifying, where the Doctor and his companion Charlie are trapped in this kind of white void that's so bright that they can't see and they can't really feel anything or smell anything or really like touch anything other than like feeling that they have each other's hand. But the Doctor also mentions that like his sense of time is like cut off, and that's affecting him just as much as like Charlie's vision being cut off is affecting her.
Interesting.
Listen to Scherzo. It's really good.
Nice tweet, Avery.
You're welcome.
Oh, let me see this. Let me see this.
Can I do a dramatic reading? Or
yes,
you can
please,
do it.
please do.
Okay.
Oh wait, do you want to read it, Avery?
I will let Skylar do it.
Okay.
Ooh woo, you know those forehead brain holes from that season 1 episode of Doctor Who? I want to get to one of those and have a girl fuck my forehead hole. This tweet is property of Avery, last name. Big Gavery.
Epic. Anyways.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah. We're so off topic this episode.
I mean, it's okay. There's not too much to talk about here.
You know, I like how the editor's like trying to figure like, hang on, something's wrong, and all of it is set up to make you think that he's after the Doctor and Rose.
That was a
but
good
he's
thing,
not.
yeah.
He's after Suki. And it turns out that Suki's actually an anarchist based RTD.
Gang. Wait, let's get to that later, though. Let's get to that later. What caught my attention in just the first news scene was how they've got like 600 channels, but this this not only implies that there's 600 different news channels, but it also implies that everything on TV is just news. Which, like, I don't know. I mean, I was talking about in the group chat that I do like this episode a lot, just for one particular aspect of it, which is the building. Just because I feel like in a lot of episodes, building is like sorely lacking, and we just sort of get a tiny sliver. Whereas this is sort of like this is the world right now, and we really get that sense for it. And I don't know, I wish there were more times in Doctor Who where there was like a recurring setting that we got to see more of, rather than just like each one is, completely different, or, we're back in London again.
I agree, and I like this episode a lot too. I just think, like, for once, surprise, surprise, Avery likes an episode slightly more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, like, you were like, oh yeah, I don't like it that much, and I was expecting to sort of be like, I was expecting to not like it either. But
well, it's not that I don't like it that much, it's just, like,
it wasn't as good as, I mean, I get that it's not as good as some of the others, but, I mean, as I already said, I do think it's better than The End of the World, just because, I don't know, I just like the world building more, I like the characters a bit more, I like the story a bit more, and it's very slight, but it's just, like, each little thing is just, like, a bit more than I like The End of the World.
Yeah, that's fair. I might be like that by the end of this episode too once we go through it, because I did watch the episode like 2 days ago because I didn't want to wait.
Yeah. I think the only thing I'd say that like is an outright negative for me, because like Adam is just like basically a neutral, is that Rose kind of takes more of a back seat. Like you can obviously tell she's more
Rose
comfortable
doesn't do
with traveling.
shit this episode.
But it's like even
there.
in Dalek she has more to do, and that's more of like a examination on the Doctor's character, so like that's probably the only like negative for me.
Rose ends up being the Yaz of this episode.
Yikes.
or alternately, to reflect how the second half of season 12 seems to be trending, the Ryan of this episode. You can change either one interchangeably, basically.
Based Graham time.
Yeah. If they kill Graham, we riot.
I will say there is a good Adam moment here after the news scene, and Adam goes like, "This technology, it's amazing," and then the Doctor's like, "This technology's wrong," and it's sort of, I mean, it goes back. I think that is a good character moment for Adam, because it sort of reflects his background as just like a tech bro who just like doesn't really care about the ethics of anything.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like it's more supposed to be that he's a perspective from someone who's effectively like modern, like effectively like contemporary, mixed with someone who knows that this technology is not fitting like the era that we're in.
But no, I think you can totally read it like that. But like, I think it does fit into his tech bro background. He's like more thinking like, this is technologically impressive rather than is this morally correct. And so the Doctor, who's seen everything, he's more like, okay, no, like this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening. So I don't know. I found that to be an interesting character.
Yeah. Also, I do like, admittedly, like, it doesn't actually, like, this isn't for most of the episode, but I do like how whenever Floor 500 is mentioned, like, it's built up of, like, oh my god, Floor 500, like, the walls are made of gold, and then you go up there and it's just, like, freezing, and there's fucking, like, skeletons and dust everywhere.
What other capitalist lie can you give me, episode? Come on. You got a few more in you.
I mean, I do think that the implication there is obviously that, like, propaganda set up to, get them to go along with it willingly. The promise of a better place. If you work hard enough, you can succeed.
Yeah, if you work hard enough, you can eat, sleep, and work on a better floor.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like the fact that there's, and like going back to Suki and there being a resistance is just like so often in these things they've like duped everybody and it shows like, yeah, they've largely won, but there's still some people who have like an idea of what's going on. But it's just a nice like little like world like building flavor touch that I think a lot of these recent series, whatever, have lacked in some regard, but
yeah. And so Suki gets sent up to floor 500 and gets confronted by the editor, who reveals that she faked her identity and is actually Eva St. Julien, last surviving member of the Freedom 15 and a self-declared anarchist. Which, from that description, you're like, man, this is way too cool a background character to just get fucking murked 30 seconds later.
I mean, yeah. I mean... That's how I'm gonna be real. That's how it be for leftists sometimes.
Yeah.
You fight the good fight, and then the government fucking kills you.
Yeah.
And I will say, I personally identify with this character as a based anarchist myself. She's. I mean, I do appreciate this episode for showing us in a good light. For once, it doesn't happen often. But, she's out there, she's fighting that evil, spooky oppression from the evil big government. Or, I guess, evil big government blob. So I respect it. I will say, jungle gorillas are sort of more of a Marxist thing, but, I'll forgive that slight difference. Maybe it's different by the year 200,000. Maybe by then we've, Marxists and anarchists have worked it out enough that we have a bit of a niche overlap there,
I mean, fourth great and bountiful human empire. That imperialism is going to do a toll. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that was one of I did mention that, just like how I do have a bit of an issue with the way the Doctor like sort of hypes up the fourth great and bountiful human empire, and then like the fact that the Earth has been like totally gutted and destroyed to make these fucking ugly ass mega cities.
Well, I also think part of the other point is that it's also like the fact that is also what's going on is like, I think that also reflects that something wrong is happening.
But no, he said himself that like he didn't see anything wrong with the Earth itself. Like that's how the Earth was supposed to look. So all like right. I mean that's the impression I got anyway. So it's just like,
that's fair.
I don't know. It just gave me a weird vibe.
Plus,
but, like,
plus Empire is a bad term.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, Empire equals good, and also like, yes, it's supposed to be like this with no nature and stuff. And so, I mean, I do. But then also there was like a video of her in the jungle, even though the Earth completely studies. I don't know. It feels like there's
it's just the side of the Earth, and like maybe they just made it so like one half of the Earth is like all brown in cities, and then the other half is just like completely untamed wildland.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, when you use Empire like that, it's pretty much a stand-in for like, oh, they've grown like very big, and if you use something like Federation, that sounds very Star Trek-y. So I can get why you want to differentiate
Republic,
it in name.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, but I do think it's important that like they set it up like that, and then also you have a group of anarchists using them. It's just like even when I mean it goes back to this idea of like even when supposedly something like this is great for the people in it, if it's an empire, it's exploiting someone, and I'm glad that there are anarchists around to point that out and fight against it. I respect it. Yeah, go anarchy.
Yeah.
And
it kind of is. Well, actually, no. My point would go way off topic in like an episode that's like 2 series from now. So let's keep going.
Okay. So Adam has his little moment where he like tries to figure out about technological developments. Whatever. I don't care about Adam's plot. Moving on.
Wait. Like, oh, you're talking about when he gets his surgery?
No, we're not there yet.
Which part were you talking about?
He's when he's first looking at the database, and then it cuts to the doctor, and then it cuts back to him, and that's when they tell him he needs the surgery. So,
I do want to say something about that little moment, just because it tells him that like something the regular I forget what it was, some technology term, and it gets replaced in 2019. And I was like, haha, that's already passed, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
That was my one thing.
Yeah. No, that's the curse of putting anything too close, but whatever. Kathika has a real late-stage capitalism line where she's like, you work, sleep, and eat on the same floor when you work at Satellite 5, and it's just like, ooh. Ooh. Also, yeah, I think one of the strongest bits of this episode is the characterization, and especially, like, Kathika has, like, a fairly involved arc for, like, a side character in a 45-minute episode.
She really does, honestly. She goes through the whole thing.
Yeah, like, the doctor, like, kind of, like, prods her and is like, hey, you realize that, like, you're not questioning anything, and that's very dangerous, especially for someone who works in the media. So Adam is trying to learn about future technological advancements, and he is told to go down to floor 16 and to get an implant. And he meets a nurse who is played by Tamsin Greig, who I recognized her, and like I didn't realize that she was in this episode, but I recognized her from a different thing, which is a British comedy called Black Books, which unfortunately is under the list of shows that is now permanently tainted because of the involvement of transphobe-in-chief Graham Linehan.
Really? Graham Linehan is involved with that. God damn it.
Yeah, with Black Books? Yeah, he is.
I mean, I didn't know. I'd never heard of the show. You just started talking about it, and then it's always, that was a ride of a sentence, I'm gonna be real here.
Yeah, no, it's a shame because it's really funny, and then I like went and like, hey, I haven't thought about Black Books at all, and then I loaded up an episode, and it's like created by Dylan Moran and Graham Linehan, and I'm like, no. But yeah, so he gets the surgery to put the chip in. And there's a scene where she delivers this. She does the surgery, and then she reveals the you open the port in your forehead by doing the finger click, and he like starts to vomit, and then it comes out as like a frozen cube, and she's like, yeah, that's a special throw, and then we did that, and that is the cue for the other cursed tweet you could get: vomit ice cubes.
Oh dear.
Yummy.
2 for this episode. Yeah. I have to wonder, like, obviously it's there for the gag, and it's probably so normal.
The gag.
It's so normal in the future that they're probably like, oh yeah, you snap your finger and that opens and no one's gonna blink an eye. But you would think that you could like change that to not open on that command.
Well, she literally says you can. She said that's the default command.
Yeah,
I guess. I don't know.
I feel like that's a really shitty default command if like anyone can do it. But then again, this is a capitalist hellhole, so
just like the forehead hole.
Oh dear.
Nice.
Whole boy.
So there's a really cool scene where the editor starts to spy on the doctor who's opening up like the side, like this panel on a wall, and getting into the computers, and the editor's like, hang on a second, he was cleared, he was safe, why is he doing this? And they start to run scans on him, and they realize that they have no records of him, period.
I find that a little hard to believe. Like, there's nothing there, like, at all, even of like him in other identities.
Why would the fourth great and bountiful human empire have him in their data if they're trying to control? If they're trying to control people, why I think it would make sense that their data is specifically their data taken for this, and they don't use old data. But that's me.
I suppose it just seems to me like if you're a news station, you're gonna have data, even if it's data that you're specifically hiding. But I do get that it's like at this point there hadn't been the whole like Moffat-esque like, oh, just say his name and like people will like run for their lives type of thing. You know, if
Yeah,
this was a
actually, like,
Moffat
most-
episode,
yeah.
they'd be like, oh my gosh, but like it
Yeah,
makes
actually,
sense.
like most, like, you get a couple occasions where, like, the Nestine consciousness and maybe the Gelf? I can't remember, but, like, generally, like, most of the aliens in this season do not know who the Doctor is.
Even though he just, like, killed a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, yeah, the Doctor and Rose go up to floor 500, and they find the editor, and Rose finds the fact that Suki is dead, and there's this really morbid thing of, like, how, like, the people that the Jagrafess killed are forced to keep working on the computer system because the chip in their head is still working. That's really morbid. And, like, Doctor Who, this is another thing of, like, RTD, like, generally, like, it's not, like, dark, but it's still darker than, like, both of the two other eras of the revival show. And you get, like, some really morbid shit like that.
You gotta keep extracting that surplus profit.
Yeah. So, and the editor introduces the editor-in-chief, who's really controlling everything, except not really, because the Daleks are really controlling everything, which we learn later.
Yeah, that got me wondering if this is just like a specialized Dalek that they made some like BS backstory for, or
Maybe. But yes, the editor introduces the editor-in-chief, and watch this. The mighty Jagrafess of the holy Hadrajasic Maxarodin foe.
oh shit.
And the hold for that was, so I watched the bonus features for this episode, and apparently the shot where they had him saying that was Simon Pegg's first day, and he like had so much trouble with memorizing that the whole name.
Yeah, bless his soul.
Yeah. So yeah, we get a really based line here where the doctors, or actually no, where the editor is like, create a climate of fear and it's easy to keep the borders closed. It's just a matter of emphasis. The right word and the right broadcast repeated often enough can destabilize an economy, invent an enemy, change a vote. And it's like, whoo boy.
That's a spicy one.
Yeah, this episode came out in 2005, and yet our lad has us fucking like, wow. Like this episode is just like, it's actually kind of scary now.
Yeah. I mean, nothing to add on to it. It's like, it's scary how accurate that was. And to be honest, how accurate it's always been is probably just more and more obvious with the like ridiculous, obscene amount of information and how many ways you can twist it, and
in 2005, I'm pretty sure it was just like insightful commentary on like Rupert Murdoch and News Corp, but now it's everywhere.
Also, there's this good little interaction. Rose goes, so all the people on Earth are like slaves, and the editor's like, well, now there's an interesting point. Is a slave if he doesn't know he's enslaved? And the doctor just says, yes. Oh, I was hoping for a philosophical debate. Is that all I'm going to get? Yes. The doctor just says yes again. And that's like my favorite thing. Because I don't know why, it gave me the vibe of like Twitter. It gave me the vibe of like sea lining. That's what I thought of.
Yeah, you're telling me that r/enlightened centrism or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just like,
and
it's just like
Simon Pegg is so good in this episode.
Yeah, it's just like it gave me the vibe of just like, if you don't know, sea lining is basically it's a trolling tactic where you just you ask questions just for the point of having pointless arguments, and basically try to waste the person's time. And so that's basically what he's doing here. He's just oh, so are they really slaves if you think about it philosophically? And it's just like, shut the fuck up. I love
Yeah.
that the Doctor just smartly does not engage with that. It's just like,
Yeah.
yes, it is slavery.
Are you telling me that the editor is Ben Shapiro with
Oh my
Justin
god.
Timberlake in sync frosted tips? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh my
right now?
god.
Okay.
Because I love
No,
that
this.
image.
Oh my god, this analogy works perfectly. He's Ben Shapiro because he's the rich frontman for richer billionaires, like who
Yeah.
have an agenda.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah, there's a base line where he's like, well,
Yeah,
you're
he
not a
works for
Jaggerfest, you're
banks.
human, and he's like, well, simply being human doesn't pay this well, and the doctor's like, you can't have done, or sorry, Rose is like, you can't have done this on your own, and the editor is like, no, I represent a consortium of banks, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, RTD, what the fuck? How are you so like scarily predictive of the fact that like, yeah, it's not actually run by like someone who like cares about the news. The editor is just some rich fucker that billionaires put in place. So it's just like, oh my god. And then Adam almost fucks everything over. Here's the thing I don't get about this episode. How the fuck is, like, the blue beam of light able to lift the fucking TARDIS key? Like, that's not... What?
Look. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because visuals. There's your answer.
Yeah. But I do like how... I do like how, like, they figure out who the Doctor is, and they're like, oh shit, time travel, now that changes everything, because, like, yeah, I imagine like rich fuckwits would absolutely use time travel to make themselves even richer.
I mean, I am a little bit curious how they figured out who he is. Like, did the Jaggerfest just, like, have that knowledge?
No, what happens is they use Adam.
Oh.
Yeah, since he's in the system and he has
Oh,
access
that
to
makes-
everything in the system.
That makes
Yeah.
more sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though, like, it is kind of weird how... I mean, I don't know. Maybe he gets it from, like, putting it together, but, like, Adam doesn't know what a Time Lord is, but maybe he sees the thing goes TARDIS, and they have enough information to put that together, so then he says Time Lord. It's just a nitpicky thing, but it still works, sort of, and I still hate Adam. So, you know, mission accomplished.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like... And then, so Kathika has her arc moment where she decides to stop, like, not asking questions and decides to actually be, like, inquisitive and a proper journalist, and actually saves the day by going into the system and, like, overloading it or whatever, or... Yeah, disengaging the safety and getting into the system and turning up the heat and all that sort of thing. And the best thing is like, she doesn't die. I feel like, I don't know if it's because I've watched this show so much or other things so much, I feel like that would be like, oh, it overloaded and she dies. No, she doesn't die. She lives. This is good.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know. Yeah, the Doctor commands her to be like, hey, you know, make it better. And then we all know how that turns out. But, you know, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. She lived.
Well, that's not her fault, but yeah.
Oh, no. Of course it isn't. It's just, it's and it's appropriate given how there seems to be a theme of the Doctor thinking he can just leave and things are fine, but both in this circumstance and the one where he has to come back to the Slitheen that's still there, it's not all fine.
Yeah. So we have Kathika turns up the heat back up, and it earlier on it's explained that the reason why Floor 500 is so cold and the rest of the satellite is so warm is because the Jaggerfest has to be kept at like a lower temperature. So they turn the heat up, and apparently that causes the Jaggerfest to explode, which leads to Alien exploding into goop number, or Villain exploding into goop number 3, after Cassandra and the Slitheen that explodes in that two-parter.
I will say, like that presented an unrealistic speed of heating.
Yeah.
Like
No, I know.
They like flip a button and then the icicles like immediately start like flooding down, and it's like, bruh, that's not how it works. And also
Yeah.
just like they didn't do anything to stop them. Like,
Yo, I don't know.
Just-
This place isn't up to code. You know, those pipes were probably waiting to explode. I don't know.
Yeah. So,
I don't know, they could have like just banged him over the head or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, the doctor takes Adam and pretty quickly like grabs him by the ear and rushes him back to his home and is like, "Nope, you're out." I will say I think that's like, even though he's pissed at him, like, it's really shitty for the doctor to just dump him when he's still got that stuff in his head, because that's like a problem. And he says, "Well, lie low," and I'm like, well, it's literally just his head opens when you snap his fingers. There's only so low you can lie and still be able to hide that. Like, I don't...
Yeah, like,
Whatever.
that's also irresponsible for, like, if
Yeah.
any, like, type of shady government crap finds him. Hell,
Yeah.
if Torchwood, original
Yeah, exactly.
Torchwood finds him like that, you know?
I mean, like, it's I guess it's in character for 9, but it's just like, oh, really, dude?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I will say, aside from that, I think this scene is really good. The doctor's pissed off at him. I just, as I said, I think it deserved more build-up than just one episode. So, and then Adam's mom walks in and is like, "Oh my god, it's you!" And she's like, "The time goes by like that," and she snaps her fingers and his head opens up, and then it cuts to credits. So,
Well, she
that's-
has that beautiful expression first of like, what the fuck?
yeah, so that's a thing. To get a little off topic for a second to talk about Adam, because there is actually more in Adam's story, it's just not on TV. So after Adam returns, he not after Adam returns, but in the comics, Adam's mother dies shortly later, and Adam becomes really mad at the doctor for erasing the technology because he thinks that could have saved her. He starts to use the technology in his head to steal from corporate accounts. He excavates Van Statten's vault, steals a vortex manipulator, and he starts, like, kidnapping companions.
Bruh.
And, like, he kidnaps, like, all the companions and summons, like, all the doctors.
Doesn't he have a sick beard?
No, but he's, like, old and he has, like, a scar. Like, I'll show you this. Hold on.
I don't know. I remember a white beard. Maybe I'm tripping, though.
He's got white hair. This is comics older Adam.
I love how the doctor's just, like, stone facing him.
They're like, bitch.
Just like, I only made one mistake. And?
Yeah.
And what are you doing right now? Oh yeah, the doctor's making the yes face.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he summons all the Adam, like, threatens to kill all the doctor's companions, and then the doctor summons all his previous selves, and apparently it was actually engineered by the Master the whole time, which then leads to the Master killing him once Adam figures it out, and then the doctors, like, mourn him and bury him with a plaque that says Adam Mitchell, a companion true, and I'm just like, okay, you don't need to rehabilitate him that much. Like, okay.
Which one did that? 12?
No, all of the doctors.
Oh, that's a little much, but
And it's not 12, I think it's just 1 through 11.
damn.
What was I gonna say?
Yeah, it's 1 through 11.
I don't know.
I will say, just like the doctor's thing of just sort of leaving him with the head thing and being like, oh, well, you know, if you care, like, get caught because it's in your own best interest. I don't know. I felt like that was like simultaneously like kind of weak and also a bit cruel and also kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Like one, it's just like it feels slightly out of character just because it's a bit like too mean. Like I get that he messed up and you should kick him out, but also like that's just
Yeah.
a big risk to leave someone walking, somebody who you know.
Yeah, no,
is
I
terrible,
agree. Yeah, it's also like I feel like yeah, I feel like Nine's anger would be like a lot more justified. And again, I've said this so many times this episode. I think Nine's anger would be more justified if he had spent more time with Adam and he had actually kind of grown to like Adam a little, or something like that, or maybe Adam was a little bit more likable. I think this arc could have just been done a lot better than it actually was.
Yeah, it's only the only justification I can see for this is that it's 9, because I don't think maybe 10 would do it. Definitely, I don't think 11
would take the tech out. 10 would take the tech out first or do something.
And then
first,
11 never gets that angry, like rarely. Yeah. And then 13, no question. So it's just
and 12 wouldn't really have done it either. He'd yell at him, but he'd still like take it out first because he gets mad. But he's not like as hot-headed mad.
He'd give him he'd give him the really sad judgy.
Yeah.
He'd give him the, like, you better stay out of way or I will fuck your life. And then he would take the technology out. And even with that, Adam would not do anything ever again.
Yeah. Because Peter Capaldi is scary. So I believe, yes, this episode was actually based on an idea which he submitted to the Doctor Who production team in the early 1980s. So he'd been trying to make this one for a while. So that's an interesting tidbit of like this was an idea he actually had like a long time ago.
I mean, what writer wouldn't be like, yeah, we're doing this if they suddenly got in charge? So
yeah, no, totally. Anyway, moving on to ratings. I think this episode, like, it gets a lot of hate online, or at least it's generally regarded as a weaker episode. I actually think it's actually a really good episode, partly because its commentary is growing steadily more relevant each passing hour. But it's got good characterization, it's got great world building. Simon Pegg's a delight in it. The alien plot isn't that great, but I think the commentary itself is pretty good, and it makes sense that the alien isn't that present because they're literally intentionally hiding away from humanity. They don't want humanity to know that they're there. So yeah, it's good. I think I'm going to settle with giving it an 8 and say that I used to think it was a little bit worse than End of the World, but I'm going to say it's actually about tied with End of the World. So far my ranking would be Dalek is the best, followed by Rose, a tie between this and End of the World. The Slitheen episodes, so that would be World War III, then Aliens of London, and then Unquiet Dead as the worst one that we've watched so far.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I can go, I guess.
Go ahead.
Sure. I don't know. I'd say for this isn't an episode that like really jumps out to me like when I like look back on the show, but it's like it's really enjoyable. The sets are interesting enough, even though the CGI is a bit more obvious, but like just the world building and like I wouldn't say like Adam is a positive, but like how Adam fucks up with like the forehead thing is like entertaining enough. Simon Pegg is delightfully campy and like still, terrifying when he needs to be. The message is based and on point and relevant so many years later, which to me that's when you have a solid episode, even if everything isn't firing on full cylinders. So I would give this an 8 out of 10 or like a solid B, I'd say.
Okay, so this is really funny because I said I like this episode more at the end of the and we were sort of joking. Oh, I like the episode, more than Geoff does, but I I guess since our rating scales are like skewed, with mine being more negative, I was gonna give it like a 7.25 or like 7.5 somewhere about there. So I guess you do actually like this episode more than me, Geoff.
I mean, okay. I felt like I still gave Unquiet Dead like a 7, so I don't want to give Long Game a 7 because that's too close to Unquiet Dead.
See, this is what happens when you're too generous. You don't have room to, fully account for how bad episodes are.
Well, I'll go with a 7.75.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with 7.25. I thought the story was, I think specific parts of the story are kind of weak. I think specific plot points are kind of weak. I think Adam could have been done better, but overall, it's a very good world-building episode. It's a very interesting episode. It's a very based episode. Has good plot lines. Has some very good character moments from the Doctor and, in my opinion, Adam, even if you don't agree. I do like Adam in this episode. Rose is kind of just there, but the other girl, she was good. I think Simon Pegg was amazing in this episode, and just overall, even if it had its bad moments, and sort of comparing it to the end of the world. Comparing it to End of the World, since that's the closest episode so far, I would say, End of the World is more consistent throughout the whole episode, but I would say it doesn't hit the same high points, and I feel
it doesn't hit as hard. Like when this episode hits, it hits hard.
Yeah, so for me, those high points more than make up for those little, sort of those little weird things that aren't that good. So for me, it's ending up, I'll say 7.5. I'll say 7.5.
Yeah. I was gonna say 8, but then I realized I'm gonna take it down to a 7.75 because of Adam. Just a slight point reduction because of Adam. Anyways. So, next week we will be covering Father's Day, where the Doctor and Rose go to 1987 and see the tragic car accident that took the life of Rose's father and get embroiled in a series of paradoxes and changing time and stuff. And this episode is written by Paul Cornell, who has very quickly actually become one of my favorite Who writers ever since I read the book version of Human Nature. So yeah, I'm excited for next week because I really like Paul Cornell. And even though he's only written, I believe, the 2 episodes for New Who, the other one is Human Nature Family of Blood, which I think is like a top 10 all-time great. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Until then, you can follow the podcast, if you're not already, at B2 TARDIS Pod. My name is Geoff, and I can be found at WheatleyDL on Twitter.
I'm Skylar. I can be found on Twitter at skyhigh9_5.
I am Avery, and I can be found at BigGavery on Twitter.com.
And at that Twitter.com, you can find the 2 exclusive cursed tweets that Avery composed during the recording of this episode.
Bless.
Anyways, we will see you all next week then. See ya.